Hey guys, just dropping this little quick one right here. I know I've been out a little sick and I'm still a little sick. As you can hear, I'm recovering. I've been congested. So just wanted to drop a little something for you guys. Yesterday, the Maryland court reinstated murder conviction of serial subject Adnan Syed. Okay. So if you guys remember Adnan Syed, there was a huge HBO documentary about him. He was convicted for the murder of Heyman Lee. Here's a picture, and I'll make sure I link some sources in the description box for you guys that want to follow this case. This is a huge case in Maryland. Rabia has been an advocate for Adnan and the family. Listen to what Rabia had to say today.
Oh boy. Good morning, guys. We will just wait a couple of minutes. All right. Okay. I think we're good. We're like at 1,300 people, so I'm just gonna go for it. Good morning, guys. I am really tired. First of all, let me just say I'm not just emotionally tired. I'm just physically tired. I did not sleep well last night. Don't mind me as I drink my chai. If you're wondering why I'm drinking chai in Ramadan, here's a little education. There are like 20 different exceptions to fasting. You don't have to fast if you are sick, traveling, nursing, pregnant. I'm not any of those, or on your period. So do the math. I will try not to slurp. Anyway, okay, so I'm here to talk about the ruling of the court yesterday in Adnan's case. And for folks who are very confused, because, as you well should be confused, about why there's even anything happening anymore, considering that the charges against Adnan have been dropped. Let me explain what happened. September 19th, there was a hearing on a motion that the state filed to vacate Adnan's conviction. The motion was granted. Adnan was released. That's the day we brought him home. You guys all saw the video and the photographs and all that good stuff from that day. On that same day, the victim's family was represented in court by an attorney who filed a motion to postpone the proceedings, number one. Well, basically, that was it. They wanted to postpone the proceedings because they argued that the victim's family did not get enough notice for the hearing, and that they wanted to have been there in person. So the truth is, the circuit court, the court denied that the family's motion and said, no, you had enough notice. However, I will still give you an opportunity to say your piece. So she addressed Lee Young, who is Heyman Lee, the victim's brother, and said, I'll give you time. We will recess the court, and I'll give you time to get home, get on a Zoom call, and make a statement to the court. Just so you have a little bit of an idea of the sequence of events, the Lee family was actually given notice of this motion being filed about a week before it was filed. And then they were told the date for the hearing was set on a Friday for the following Monday, and the Lee family was told immediately. I want to say something here that I think it's really important to note, just to give some context to this. I don't know if I've ever maybe I've missed one hearing in Adnan's case. I think I've been at every single hearing, appeal hearing, post-conviction hearing. I think I've been at them all, except for the one that Theo kicked me out of, and, we all know what he can do. And the Lee family has never shown up, ever, in a single hearing in 23 years. Ever. I want to make that clear. They have never shown up. Not to any of the hearings on direct appeal, not to any of the post-conviction hearings, not even to the huge hearing where in 2016, was it 16 or 17, where Asia McClain testified. The big one, that big post-conviction hearing that lasted 5 days, 6 days. They didn't even come to that. If the Lee family had had a week's notice that the date's been set, do I think they would have come? Absolutely not. So anyhow, their motion was denied. Lee was given the chance to speak in court. He spoke for quite a bit, and that was the end of it. And then the judge ruled they granted the motion. The judge granted the motion and said, we are vacating this conviction. And a couple weeks later is when charges were dropped. Now, the Lee family, through that same attorney, appealed the denial of that motion to postpone up to the Court of Special Appeals. That's the intermediate court and intermediate appellate court in Maryland. You've got the circuit court, you've got the Court of Special Appeals, and you have the Court of Appeals. And this is and there's 3 judges that'll sit on a panel to rule on this. They accepted. I was actually, I think I and others were surprised they even took the appeal, but they did. We thought, well, maybe, they want to honor the victim's family and this and that, and victims, rights are important, of course. Anyhow, they took the appeal. Yesterday, they ruled in favor of the family and said that the family indeed did not get enough notice. The court has ordered for the case to be remanded back down to the circuit court for the hearing on the motion to vacate his conviction to be done all over again, even though there's no conviction. So they reinstated the conviction, except that there's no charges because Marilyn Mosby dropped the charges against Adnan. So how do you deal with that? Well, they decided that entire action was a nullity, like it didn't even happen. Can a court do that? I guess the court can do whatever it wants, is what we're looking at here. Has a court ever done anything like this? I don't think so. I don't think there is a single case in the entire history of this country's legal system where an exoneree against whom charges have been dropped, not only were a conviction reinstated, but charges were reinstated by a court. They reinstated charges, okay? Adnan did not get a chance. It's not like he's been reindicted, reconvicted. The court just decided that what Marilyn Mosby did just never even happened. This is some of the scariest precedent I've ever seen in terms of innocence work, like ever. So does this mean Adnan's let me address some questions right off the bat that I keep getting. Is he back in prison? No, he's not back in prison. Adnan's at work today. He went to his job, which is what he's going to continue to do. Of course, I spoke to Adnan yesterday. He's doing fine. It's not that we thought this was a likelihood. We did not think this was likely. But there was always a possibility that the court could do something absolutely batshit insane. And here we are. The court has said they have given 60 days for this order to become, the ruling become a mandate. So we have like 60 days to decide what can be done. What are the options here? I'll get to Mosby in a second. What are the options? Well, the options are we can now appeal this to the highest court of Maryland, which is called the Court of Appeals, in which a panel of 7 judges, I believe, there's a 5 or 7, I think it's 7, would make a decision in the case. That will take, we have to file a cert first, meaning we have to, just like you do with the U.S. Supreme Court, they don't take every case as you file cert. You hope they take the case. Then if they say, okay, we'll grant cert, that's the first step. Then they would actually consider the merits of the appeal and then make a ruling. We could be talking another year out, year and a half out, given that the Court of Appeals was the court that reinstated Adnan's conviction in 2019. Yeah, I don't really know. If we lost there, we could then take that to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is, by the way, where I think this actually belongs. This issue should be litigated up to the Supreme Court because it is such a dangerous precedent. Anybody working in this field in post-conviction work should be absolutely horrified by all of this because it means even decades and decades of work to help exonerate somebody could be completely undone. You know what I mean? And by a court that has never even really considered the merits of the underlying claim. What's interesting about the ruling to me, or the actual order, the opinion, they lay out the entire set of, and most of it is just a recital of the facts. If you can go find it online, most of it's a recital of the facts. And, the facts they recite are like the facts from trial because, our courts are stuck in tar and will never acknowledge like anything, any new evidence that's come out. I mean, they do talk about why the state moved to vacate the conviction to begin with. And, they don't actually touch the merits of any of that. They don't say any of that's not legitimate at all. They don't touch the substance of the motion to vacate. They just talk about whether or not the Lee family got enough time notice. Now, here's another interesting thing about this ruling. They say that the Lee family had the right to have enough notice that would have allowed them to be there. By the way, they had notice on Friday. They could have caught a plane on Saturday or Sunday and been at the hearing the next week, but they didn't. But the ruling says that they have a right to be present, but they don't have a right to speak. That's also a really crappy precedent for victims' families and victims' rights. I am just anticipating any minute now my husband's going to bust in here because that's just what always happens when I'm doing these things. Anyway, that's not a great precedent, you know? Is that what the Lee family wants? You want to show up but not be able to speak, whereas you already got the chance to not only show up but also speak. That's what the circuit court gave you. They gave you a chance to talk. Now the circuit court doesn't have to do that. All right. Anyhow, so our two options are this appellate option, which would take years and years and years. And I would want to drag it to the Supreme Court just to make sure that we squash this horrific precedent. Or we just say, okay, let's do the whole hearing over again. As if, I mean, like entertaining this, I don't know, fiction that the charges being dropped were a nullity. Right? So in order to do the motion again, I don't think, so there's a new state's attorney, by the way. You know, Marilyn Mosby is no longer there. There was an election. Ivan Bates is the new state's attorney. And Ivan is someone I consider a friend. He's fantastic. He was in our first documentary. He's done incredible work, not just in supporting Adnan, but also Keith Davis Jr. case, in which, by the way, Ivan recently dropped charges against Keith Davis. And we were so happy having covered that case years ago and believing Keith is completely innocent and set up with the Baltimore police. What I wonder is how much notice the victim's family get in that case or any other case. There's no actual set requirement. Like, I mean, like it has to be reasonable notice. And this is a challenge that potentially every victim's family can now bring. So, you know, the state's attorney's office has to do a little bit better in terms of trying to give them maybe a week's notice or whatever. But why Adnan's case and not others, you know, like in the past? Probably because there are dirty prosecutors involved in this case from the past who are still invested and who helped basically retain counsel for the Lee family. And I saw your dirty ass in court with their attorney, you know who I'm talking about with your dirty face. And so there's this vested interest from dirty prosecutors who I think are really trying to cover up what really happened in this case and continue to persecute a Muslim man for it. Do I think there's some bigotry here? Yeah, I do. I always have. I don't care if Sarah Koenig dismissed it. There has always been a lot of bigotry in this case. A lot of this has been about the fact that Adnan is Muslim. And the reason I can say this with confidence, for so many reasons, first of all, not just because his religion and ethnicity were brought up at the trial almost 300 times, not just because his bail was denied, even though he was a juvenile, based on the scaremongering that our community would help him run because we support honor killings, but also because they are blatantly ignoring evidence pointing to other suspects. Charges were not dropped until Marilyn Mosby got DNA evidence back showing that there is mixed DNA on the victim's shoes, both of her shoes. These were the heels she apparently had been wearing the day she disappeared. They were found in her car, not with her body. Presumably, they were put in the back of her car, and the car was abandoned by the killer. And whoever helped the killer move the body, because I don't believe one person could have done it. Listen, again, I'm not fasting for people who are wondering why I'm eating during Ramadan, but I am working on my emotional support payday bar. Do not judge me. So right now, Baltimore police, since the end of September, has had this DNA in their possession. There is so much other circumstantial evidence that I know about that can lead to other suspects. You've got two prime suspects who have never been asked to submit DNA samples. I'm talking about the victim's actual boyfriend, Don, whose whereabouts for that entire day and evening were unaccounted for, and the man who found the body, shadiest guy you'll ever meet, whose story doesn't add up about how he found the body. The DNA samples have never been taken from them to compare, as far as I know. So they've got DNA that does not include Adnan. Adnan's DNA shows up nowhere on this victim, anywhere. Her fingernails, her clothing, everything they've tested. Um, they've got DNA. I've always said the strongest evidence for his innocence was the lividity, her autopsy report. Anybody who understands anything about how lividity works knows that the entire case against him is a sham. Anyhow, so the fact that they're completely ignoring evidence pointing towards other suspects, the fact that they have evidence that would actually lead to an arrest in this case, but nothing seems to be happening, is of great concern. There's also the fact that Marilyn Mosby is politically hugely unpopular in Baltimore and much of Maryland, and has been for a while now. And I have nothing to say about that because I don't know her personally at all. I know she's got some legal issues, and I don't know enough about her political fights with people. But what I do know is a lot of people have vendettas against her, and that there has been a campaign against Mosby for quite a while now. And do I think a lot of this is about undoing what Mosby's done? Yeah, I do think part of this is about that. So the new state's attorney is Ivan Bates. Will Ivan have to bring the motion to vacate again? I don't think so. The court has pretty much said, you're just going to do the hearing over. It's like the motion to vacate was just filed, the vacate the conviction. I'm assuming Ivan will continue to just kind of do what the state already did. Like, I can't imagine him completely deciding on a whole nother route. You know what Ivan Bates can also do? He can just drop the charges all over again. He literally could drop the charges all over again. If the court is saying the charges were never dropped, the new state's attorney can drop the charges. He doesn't even have to go through the motion to vacate. But Ivan Bates does not. Ivan doesn't have to believe that Adnan is innocent. Ivan just has to believe that Adnan deserves a new trial, which is literally the thing we've been fighting for all these years. Just give him a fair trial. He did not get a fair trial. A lot of people are asking, like, what they can do. Listen, protesting on the streets is great, but it's not going to make a difference. Well, they have the same judge for the motion to vacate. I believe so. It's going to go back to the same judge. Can you explain how this isn't double jeopardy? Okay, double jeopardy works like this. Double jeopardy means you have been tried and acquitted of the charges you're facing. If Adnan had been tried and acquitted of the charges he was facing, actually acquitted by a jury or a judge, he cannot be charged with those charges again. That's double jeopardy. You have to get through a trial and be acquitted. That has never happened in this case. The DNA test. I don't know. I want to know I want to know what Baltimore police is doing with the DNA. Like, I don't know, man. Give it to me. Give it to us. We'll find it. We'll find the source. I promise you. Does he get arrested again? Well, can the state say we want to? The state can decide if they want. Ivan Bates can decide that, okay, Adnan should maybe be reincarcerated while these proceedings go forward. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the motion is just going to take place again unless we decide to do the appeal route. And that's all going to come down to Adnan and his attorney. His attorney is incredible. Erica Suter is the executive director of the Innocence Project. She is the one who brought Adnan home. She is the one who spent over a year working with Marilyn Mosby's office while they reinvestigated the case. And so Erica is still his attorney. And Erica is going to weigh the merits of, and of course, talk to Adnan about whether they appeal it or do another hearing. If anybody wanted to ask me, I'm torn because I don't want a precedent like this to stand for the greater good of, like, post-conviction work and other defendants. And because it's just simply enraging and unconscionable. But for the sake of being expeditious and Adnan's sanity and the his family, I want this to be done as quickly as possible and put a lid on it. And so I would say the way to do that is to do the motion, the hearing all over again. And so we can walk him out of the courtroom one more time with his conviction vacated. Since the time that charges were dropped against him, this has been an open homicide investigation with assigned homicide investigators from Baltimore police and a prosecutor assigned. I just want to know what they're doing. What's going on? Where is Adnan? Adnan is living his life. Adnan does not live with me, okay? Adnan has his own home. Adnan is going to work. His parents are both ill. He's taking care of his parents. It's Ramadan. He's spending his first Ramadan home since he was 17. And he broke his fast with his parents the other day for the first time ever in 24 years. And that's what he's doing. Yeah, people are asking why I'm not fasting. Look it up, folks. All right. Another thing I want to say is this. In 2008, the Supreme Court ruled, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that juvenile life sentences without parole are unconstitutional. And since then, state by state, advocates have been working to get juvenile lifers a new chance at sentencing. The JRA was passed here in Maryland, what, last year, year before? I mean, I don't know. It's all one big blur. Look, I've had a rough year. My dad passed away a few months ago. Time is meaningless right now. But the JRA was passed, and since then, many, many, many juvenile lifers have come home in Maryland because they were resentenced. Generally speaking, juvenile lifers have been resentenced around 25 years, I think, which is kind of where Adnan was. So even if you believe he's guilty, he's done the time. He has done the time. He has served the time that a guilty juvenile murderer would have served, even though he's not guilty. You know? Why are y'all freaking out about my fasting? I am not fasting. I'm on my period, people. Leave me alone. I'm not stressed. I'm tired. I'm also tired. I didn't sleep well last night. I'm just reading comments right now. But you know what? Here's the thing, and I've said this a few times in talks I've given since Adnan's come home, is that Adnan, it wasn't just Adnan being released from prison. All these people who have stood by him, his family, like we all got released, on September 19th in many ways. We all got to like finally stop worrying about Adnan and mark that box off the top of the list of like to-dos, right? Like it's been the top of my to-do list for a long time. And it's like, nope. State of Maryland's like, nope. I have been fueled by rage for a long time and I'm angry. I'm not stressed, I'm angry because it's bullshit. Anyhow, so will Adnan go back to prison? I don't think so. Will there be another motion, another hearing on the motion to vacate? Yes, I think we're going to have to go through that entire circus again, which is fine. Because in a way, I want to say something else. Even after Adnan's release, I wasn't quite done working on the case, and others aren't either, because Haven Lee's killer is still out there. And it has always been part of my mission, not just to bring Adnan home, but to make sure the right person has been arrested for this crime. And I have been continuing to work on that front and collecting evidence and doing other kind of stuff. I have an incredible investigator working with me on the case, and I know there are investigators on the police side also working. I think if we have another hearing, the public is going to hear probably stuff they haven't heard before the first time around, which is fine, which is good. It's just more evidence for Adnan's innocence. Anyhow, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to people keep saying, what about the DNA? What about the DNA? I already talked about the DNA. Ask Baltimore police. You want to know what you can do? Ask Baltimore police. Ask the state's attorney's office. What are y'all doing with the DNA? Why haven't you matched it yet? What are you doing about the suspects? Where's the investigation into this open homicide case? Petitions don't really work. They're a great show of moral support. They don't actually really move the needle on anything. It has been my petitions and marches. I don't know. I've never seen in my lifetime for them to do much of anything, unfortunately. All right. That's it for me. I actually have other cases. There are other innocent people in prison who need time, attention, resources. And, we have other work to do as well. And Adnan is doing that work right now as well, too, because he's working with Georgetown University, the Prison Justice Initiative, where he supports the innocence clinics there. And yeah, he's living his life. Live your life, Adnan. Don't worry about this noise. All right. I guess we'll probably, we'll be back in court at some point. We're doing something. All right, guys. I'll see y'all later. Bye.
All right, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments about the situation. Of course, Rabia has been a huge advocate for Adnan Syed and his family, as well as the case. Do you feel like this ruling to favor the victim's family is the right thing that the court should do, especially now that you know Rabia mentioning the fact that the victim's family has not really shown up to a lot of court hearings? What are your thoughts about this ruling? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. Rabbits out.